What's up, everybody? We're back again. You're probably getting tired of us right now, but we're back with our deep dive into the forwards, and we're going to tell you who we want to keep, sell, and loan. So I think we were just saying this is the most we've recorded like this quick before. So tech difficulties, a little bit of figuring it out. Just bear with us. And if you've made it this far, thank you. If you haven't heard the defense and the midfield, definitely go back and listen to those as well as our end of season review. And we're going to then maybe, just take a little bit of a break to regather and figure out how we want to approach Alonso as well. But enough of me blabbing in the open. Sharan, what's up?
Yeah, I mean, if and when you guys do go back, drop some love on the pods as well. Drop some likes, drop some love. Yeah, I honestly, we could just make this a really short one and say sell them all except for João Pedro. Especially considering we put Palmer in the midfielders category. That might be
Yeah.
a bit controversial, but I did want to say, in the midfield pod, we did have a callback to the defensive pod. So any regrets from the midfield discussion before we move on?
Honestly, no, I think it was in a decent space for me at least. I think you pointed out the number six is something that the more I thought about our conversation, I realized it's something we definitely need to do and address. So hopefully somebody is listening to us out there, and making those decisions. But yeah, you're right. The attack was so bad that we could just say keep João Pedro and maybe a couple of other names on that list and sell the rest. But we wouldn't be doing it justice, would we, if we just said that? So
And by doing it justice, you mean dragging ourselves through this pain, right? Just one more time for the rest of the season.
yeah, right. No, I mean, dude, I think it's I think let me tell you how I think our attack can be summarized. Okay. Our goal of this season was João Pedro's overhead kick in the loss to Forest in that, what was it, the penultimate week?
I mean, is that you're saying that from the official account, right?
Yeah. That's the official
Yeah.
Premier League goal. I mean, goal of the season
I
from the
think they've
Chelsea
done
account.
a disservice, huge disservice to. Um, I have three goals in my head. One is
Hmm.
Caicedo against Liverpool,
I knew you were going to say
that
that.
seems like really long ago, right? Like
Yeah.
when we were. I feel like we don't mention this enough, but Maresca was really doing a lot. He was getting a lot out of these guys, even though the results weren't great at the time. He was squeezing every little bit they had left, and then we only see that in hindsight when Rafinha comes in, like, oh, actually, it's a shit show back there. So his goal, I think, is being forgotten about a bit. Also, Reece James against Newcastle. That was this season, right? His free kick.
The free kick,
Um,
right? Yeah, it was, I
yeah,
believe. Yeah.
that was,
No, but
I
it's
mean,
also recency
amazing
bias,
hit.
man. This is
And
recency bias playing out perfectly, right? This
yeah,
is the
but
it,
do you remember João Pedro against Newcastle when he receives a long ball from Sanchez and collects it on his head, like he uses his head as a first touch and brings it down and runs in on goal. We don't talk about that goal enough. Like that was freaking
I feel
ridiculous.
like there was another João Pedro moment again where he received the ball with his back to the defender and he had like this really slick turn to release, I think it was Neto or Palmer for a goal. Like he got the assist, if I'm not wrong. Or maybe he was like a key pass. But again, like we've said, three João Pedro moments. So I think without further ado, like, of course he got what, 20 goal involvements in the Premier League. He had three goals in the Champions League. And I mean, the cups, I'm sure I can't remember for sure. I don't have that data. But essentially, look, our bona fide top goal scorer. Uh, is there any doubt in your mind about his place in this club next season?
I think the only doubt is where he plays next season, but he is a must keep. I thought about this today. It seems like Cucurella and Fernandez are on their way out. Like they're closer to going out than staying. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, these guys are now what we would call our seasoned pros, right? And we're letting them go. How do you replace that? I mean, the whole idea was that they grow at the club and, they build their reputations, but also their skill and their loyalty to the club. Um, Now, again, João Pedro's only had one season with us, but he's already our most important player, aside from maybe Palmer, who's probably technically our best. You let him go, and it really feels like we're going back to square one, right?
Hmm.
So, out of the three names I've mentioned, Cucurella, Enzo, and João Pedro, who would you say is the most important to keep?
Oh, you had a gun to my head like in the last one. Why are you doing it again? Oh
I'm just
God.
out here. I'm ready to fire shots, bro.
Oh shit. Okay. Given the state of affairs across the pitch, the most important is João Pedro because we need somebody who's getting goals. We're not getting those. I mean, I say that, and then I remember Enzo also had 20 goal involvement. So yeah, but I think João Pedro, because in midfield you still have cover that can do the job. You don't have cover at forward. I mean, as things stand currently, right? So we're gonna go through the list, but one player we're gonna talk about is Liam Delap. Another player who's got to feature in this conversation is gonna be Nicholas Jackson and his future as well. So um, for me, I think if you gun to my head, it's João Pedro there from those three. You?
I think I think that, yeah, you're probably right about that. So yeah, like I said, for me, he's a keep. 20 goals in the season for all comps. I think that's more than what we would have expected at the start of the season. 15 goals in the Prem. There's always talk at the start of the season. Oh well, is he a 15 goal a season striker in the Prem? Now, granted, when the pundits are using that phrase, it's more about a mid-table to, like, top 8 team, right? They're not necessarily talking about title challengers needing a 15 goal a season striker. It's more like 20 plus, right? But we need, like you said, we needed. So I think we move on with Jackson. I think we'll probably talk about our squad, our squads and where we are after kind of the whole review of the keep low sell
Hmm.
later. I actually didn't really track too much what he was doing in Bayern Munich. But you did mention another name there, Liam Delap. Just briefly, right? Do you see a scenario where a Delap, we also have a Mega coming in, right? So there's a potential for a Delap or a Mega or Jackson leading the line with João Pedro coming down to the 10 role. I mean, do you like that idea? Because again, we don't know how Alonso is looking at this team yet. So
So I mentioned that simulator, right? A couple of pods ago. When I did that, I had João Pedro in a 10 role behind a striker who I will disclose at some point. But yes, I could see him in that role. And if if he is not our leading striker, then I see him playing as a 10. And in that situation, we have a lot of outgoings in my book. Um, you know, so Liam Delap had one goal all season, I think, in the Premier League. And there was this whole piece where
so at least
he's,
somebody is definitely worse than Fernando Torres, right? For us.
dude, I don't think Torres was that bad, man. I
But
think he
you
made up.
remember, I can't remember what streak he was on where we had just paid the 50 million pounds for him and he couldn't score to save his life. And then he
Yeah.
misses that empty net against United and you're like, wow, this guy is bad. I think Delap has taken this to a whole new level. And I don't like to talk about a 22-year-old like that, right? Like he's got a lot of time to learn, but he has a lot to learn.
He
Um,
has a lot to learn, man. I think if you were assessing his, his how much he was if you weren't assessing him on goals and assists, and you were looking at him and like, oh, how involved is he in the gameplay? Like, how much is he like shithousery and all? He's great. Like, he's just fouling players unnecessarily, barging into players. He's involved in that sense, but where it matters, nah. And you're right. He's young, but you see, you talk about Torres, right? You're talking about Torres. Like his record before he came to Chelsea was like something else. It's different that okay, he had the knee injury and all of that happened, right? And when he was coming in with Delap, he's come from where did he come from? Hull, Ipswich via Hull, right? He was at Hull and then Ipswich, right? I was trying to think it wasn't Leicester, it was a team in blue, right? Ipswich. It's not that he had an exemplary record there. Uh, and then he's come here and you expect him to kick on and get what, at least 5 goals? You would expect, but he seemed to be more interested in like, just a lot of times he was breaking up plays that were happening by creating stupid, like, fouling players in stupid ways. And I feel like the last few times I saw him in the season, he wasn't even able to connect a pass. He looked like he was doing his own thing. And it just seemed like somebody who had no idea. Like, you talk about intelligence, right? Like, you use that a bunch when we were talking about the midfield, like intelligent players. Delap doesn't seem to be an intelligent player. He seems to be someone who can get physical, who can bully his way in the box and be like a poacher. But our system is not designed for that, at least the way I see it, right?
I do agree with that comment because it feels like he's easily manipulated by the opposition defenders. Um, and that includes getting like riling him up to the point where he loses his own discipline, right? You talk about like, well, if you measured him maybe on shithousery, he'd be good. I actually disagree because the defenders are like, yeah, come on, man, come and nail me off the ball and come and get your yellow card. They want that, right? Because at the end of the day, they know not to take his bait. It's too obvious. Like with Cucurella, it's a little bit more like needle, like kind of little jabs here and there. He leaves one in, it's a little bit more subtle. And then, of course, he's got this massive head of hair that's just always in your face. Right? I can't imagine that's nice to play against. But, like Delap is just, he's clearly just taking out his frustration and it's not smart, right? Again, we talk about maturity. I like, there's no point going back into, this whole thing about discipline because I think we've beat it already. But I think, right? I think what you're saying is there's no chance he's playing for us next season, right? Or at least in your eyes, you don't keep him in the squad.
Yeah, he's a sell for me. I think we've seen enough in one season to understand that maybe Ipswich to Chelsea was too much of a jump. Maybe he needed a couple of seasons at a club in between. And I don't think that, his valuation is about 30 million euros or so. I think we should just cash in and, whatever we get, just sell him because at this point, he's just dead weight on the bench, in my opinion. What about you?
When you say like his value is 30 million euro, I mean, I don't think we'd get that. So you'd have to basically, what you're saying is you would accept a cut price deal on him, right? I'm putting him in the loan category, just because I think it's too early to give up on him. But we shouldn't experiment with him at Chelsea, right? He actually needs to go to a club where he is going to be the main man up top. I think he thrives on that. And, hopefully he's either able to hone his anger and aggression into something useful, and grab some goals, or at least just be decent enough to bump his value up to then sell him on next year. I mean, we know he's probably on a very long contract anyway. So, but honestly, man, I think that's enough on Delap because he really didn't do much. I know there was talk about an injury which he was carrying for like 2+ months, and that seems to have affected his form and temperament and all of that. But mate, look at how many injuries Reece James has gone through in his early
Yeah.
part of his career. and he gets through it. And I'm not saying that everybody should follow Reece James, but there's clearly a right way and a wrong way to deal with it.
100%.
How okay, so like, you said João Pedro is a must keep because of the goals, right, that he brings and the contributions in general going forward. What did you make of our striker depth? I mean, we have full hindsight available to us, right? In hindsight, clearly keeping I mean, João Pedro, Delap, and Guiu as our striking options um, clearly wasn't enough, right?
No, it wasn't. And I think the fact that, when Delap had that injury, right, and they try to recall Jackson, like stop that loan from going through, I think they also were aware of that. Um, and I honestly think that with you, um, he's someone that I've been a little disappointed with because I think he showed good flashes when he was coming on. Um, I guess it was towards the end of the season, last season, and then of course the loan to Sunderland's announced, and they recall him, and I just feel like for some reason I was expecting to see him more, especially when the fixtures were getting congested, but we just never saw him, and every time he came on, he did have some glimpses, but you know if it comes to it, basically with Gu versus a Delap, for me, I'd rather loan Gu because he's still raw. He's still like if Delap is 22, Gu is younger, and I would rather loan him out and let him develop and cash in on Delap than loan Delap and maybe then have to sell Gu. But that's my way of looking at it. I think like he's someone that I think his ceiling is higher, but that's just based on what I've seen and what I sort of read about him and what I can recall. How do you feel about Guda?
I think he's a key. I think I would like to see more of him. So this is the thing, right? I think
Mhm.
for whatever reason he didn't get as much game time as he did, but he's 19, which means look, we can afford to keep him as like a third choice striker and see, okay, we'll give you another chance. We'll get you minutes, right? And like you said, look, if there's a scenario where João Pedro is playing in 10 and we are kind of, using our first choice striker, right? And game's over, just inshallah, right? We're 3-0 up. Never going to happen, right? But still, you know, you're 60 minutes in, you're 3-0 up, and you're like, you know what? Here's your 30 minutes. Go out and show everyone what you can do. I feel like this is his season. I feel like Delap kind of did, have his chances. I actually, honestly, I think Delap still has something to offer, which is why I said loan, right? But fair enough, he actually did have his chance. 12 starts in the Premier League. It should be enough to show something, right? Um, we have to also caveat all of this by saying that we just weren't very coherent, or like there wasn't always this cohesive attacking plan every game. And if the players around you are not creative, feeling at their creative best, they're not supplying, then there is a bit of a caveat there for the strikers. I don't want to make too much of a excuse for Delap, but for Guiu, man, like I don't think we've given him the chance. And I'm still remembering his first season with us, where, man, if nothing else, stick him up there as a pressing forward, like somebody who can hassle and harry defenders. Chelsea fans will accept that, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
if he can create chances for other players, then show that, right? Then do that.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was remembering about him, to be honest. So I'm fully with you there. But then if you're keeping him around as a third choice striker, now just given the state of affairs, right? We've already mentioned it. And I think this is a good sort of look at just the forwards, as in your center forwards, not your wide players. Um, you know that Emega's coming in. you know that Jackson's being recalled from loan, right? So you're talking about João Pedro, who's been playing as a out and out striker, who, yes, we agree could play in a 10, right? But of course, it's down to the system, right? Um, then you're saying there's Jackson, uh, Delap, Gu, and Omega, right? Um, that's four players playing for what could be one position. Now, I know you said Delap goes out on loan, but then you're saying that our striker depth is Jackson, Omega, and Gu. Those are your three. Are you comfortable with that?
No, but I don't want to like. I mean, we don't need to bring up Omega right now or Jackson, um, because I mean, like, let's focus on the players who did play for
Okay.
us, right? João
Okay.
Pedro is
Fair.
still my starting number one striker, but we're just saying that look, he is a depth attacking midfield option if we need it as well, right? But he has shown that he can do either role to a very, very high level. I don't want to jinx anything like Touchwood. He had a good first season. Let's build on it. He cannot be removed from that striker position without reason. And playing Jackson or playing Omega or playing Delap, those are not reason enough. They're all worse than him. So yeah,
Good.
I'm just gonna focus on the players we have for now, right? Who have played with us.
Fair.
Delap goes out on loan, and I think Guiu is a good third choice striker because he's not so raw that it's not a Mueca, right? Where
Yeah.
you're just throwing a body on a pitch, I feel. For me, Mueca needs to go out on loan and really learn his trade, right? He's not going to get substantial minutes or meaningful minutes at our club. I'm glad we're getting a chance to mention him, right? Because he was in and around the squad. But let him go. Let him go out
Yeah.
alone. He's a Chelsea product. Get him some game time elsewhere.
Yeah. That's fair. I think one caveat for me is I've not really considered the academy players in this, to be very honest. So I think I'm fully aligned that yeah, Mueca should be developed on loan somewhere. But okay, so for me it's João Pedro keep, Delap sell, Q loan. For you it's Jackson and Jackson. João Pedro and Gu keep and Delap loan. So no sells in your forwards as it stands. We're not counting those two that are coming in.
Yeah, no, you got it
Okay.
absolutely spot on. I have a
Okay.
feeling you've got something to say about Jackson, but we'll
No, no, no.
we'll bury that lead for now. Um,
No, I actually don't.
before we
It's
get to Nicholas Jackson, we should probably cover the wingers first, and
yeah.
we should definitely start with your favorite winger. I mean, can you even call him a winger if he can't dribble? Mr. Alejandro.
Yeah, no, I'll eat the humble pie, or rather the shame pie there, whatever you want to call it. Look, I got it massively wrong, man. I just quickly went back to look at his stats again to confirm, and he had 6 goals, 2 assists in the Premier League the season before with United, and I think his overall was 11 goals. And I said, okay, look, we're gonna expect him to beat that, right? While he did have 8 goals across the whole season, he had only 1 goal in the Premier League and 4 assists. And yeah, I mean, you're right. He didn't really show. He didn't really show up, man. Like you're buying this guy because he's supposed to be able to beat players, take the ball down the wing, be a good carrier and all of that. Mm-mm. We got it wrong. And I don't know who's got more egg on their face, me for sticking my neck out on Garnacho watch, or who was it that was responsible for bringing him among the directors? But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, yeah, I was about to say, mate, you're not the one who spent actual money on him.
yeah,
I have a feeling that if it was actually your money, mate, there's no way you're sanctioning Garnacho. Like, I think let's be real, right? There's no way you
yeah,
would have
yeah,
you would have got Leao or somebody like
dude.
reasonable.
I honestly do not like the guy. Like he's been very polarizing. Every time I see him in a United shirt, I'll be like, "Fuck this guy." And I said, okay, you know what, I'm going to give him a fair chance. And it was also a bit of like me putting something on the line to say, okay, I'm going to back this player more. But man, good riddance, really. Like he can leave. Like I have, for me, he's in easy sell. Like
This
straight
is
up.
this is the one where, like, I actually say you do the cut price deal. Like with
Yeah.
Delap, I'm not totally ready to, say, sell him for half the price that we bought him, because I still think there's something there. But with Garnacho, I see like a bit of Pedro, as in not João Pedro, but former Chelsea players, former Chelsea winger Pedro,
Pedro.
um, in that, decent touches of the ball, but the moment he has it too long, it's like you can see he needs to just get rid of it and move on. He's more of an off the ball mover, but neither of the managers we've had this season really need that from or want that from their wingers, right? They want dribblers. They want somebody who can take their man on without thinking about it. So this was we call. I mean, I said it from the start. This guy did not fit the system, and it came true. So I think this is where you cut your losses and you move on, right?
Yeah.
Coming to uh his kind of, I mean, would you really say Gittins was competing with Garnacho for his role? I feel like Gittins just disappeared.
I think Gittins had a couple of appearances where he showed that he can impact a game. But then yeah, the injury happened, and I think it was just done for him then. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, cash in on both of them." Gittins, Garnacho, easy sells, because they just haven't done anything. But for me, I think honestly, I would give Gittins a shot, whether we keep him or we loan him. And I haven't worked that out in my head because um, I would say a loan because he's coming back from an injury, and he could probably do with some development time. But then I also think that I remember that we don't have Europe. We don't have that hectic a schedule that we can't ease him in, and it might do him well to work under Alonso from the get go. So maybe I would actually that I think I made my decision: keep Gitten, sell Garnacho. Um, that's with the left wingers, the traditional left wingers that we have. Well, how do you feel about Gitten? Because I know
Yeah,
Garnacho easy.
I mean, with Gittins, I'm going back and forth because I do feel like it's raw potential, but he's 20. Like, it's not raw potential, but he's 18. So it almost feels like he's a little bit behind the curve, right? But then we haven't seen enough of him. So your point is like fair. Again, this is the same logic I use with Guiu, but I feel like Guiu looks like he's at least a year younger than Gittins, right? Where, like, I'm not going to say third choice winger, right? But you do need to keep a right-footed left winger at the club, and I would like the one that can dribble, you know. What I will say about Gittins is there were a couple games where he played right wing. Okay, I was intrigued. Like, I actually thought, right-footed winger on the right-hand side. Like when we've seen Neto recently at left wing, it's done. There's nothing there, But Gittins was actually able to manufacture things, opportunities from being in that position. And he has a bit of a swinger on his left foot. So again, all of these raw things are there. And I do have the feeling, I don't know, something in my head is like that right wing where he can actually be a right-footed option. Um, it might be good to keep him around for that versatility, right? Which is he's basically like, if maybe Alonso doesn't want to play with wingers, but he's chasing a game, so he has to. Gittins is a good left winger to bring on, right? Or Alonso wants to start a game where he sees the, chance to dominate from the first try, from the, first whistle. And or maybe he wants to rest Gusto and James. Then could you put Gittins a right wing back? I think you could. I think
Yeah.
at 20 years old and without the ego of Garnacho, right? I actually think it could be a good shout because he's basically able to take on his man, and just stay wide, keep his game very simple. And sometimes that's what these players need to actually develop, right? They need the simplicity to focus on the core attributes that, that's what makes them who they are, to develop it to a very, very good level. So I don't know. I went on a very, very long thing with Gittins to just say keep, right?
No,
Uh,
that's fair.
I think he's somebody who will be impacted more by the movements of the market, right? And how
Yes.
we do relative to others. Right now, I'm seeing him as a good backup option in the squad depth.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. Um, and whether he could be used at the right wing back, it's intriguing. I talked about it on the last one. I could also see Estevao being used there, so we'd have to see how that pans out, right? But you one thing you talked about in terms of that he's a bit behind in the graph, right? I think we mentioned this when we were previewing him. At the start of last season to say we've sold Madueke. And you remember that conversation? We had sold Madueke and then we were getting someone who's behind Madueke on the curve. And I think it played out exactly like that. Now whether the development can happen the way Madueke has happened because he went to Arsenal, he won a title, right? Just the fact that he won a title eclipses his
Yeah,
actual
yeah, but come on,
contribution there.
man.
I'm just,
That
yes, I
to say
know,
Madueke,
I
like,
know,
it's not like he
I
went there
know,
and single-handedly won the title.
I know. I said that already, but I'm just calling it out. It's important to, I think, remember these things, right? So
If
yeah, I think
Arsenal want to come, if Arsenal want to offer us stupid money for Gittins, I'd sell him. I'm just saying, like, someone's gonna give us the money that we spent on Gittins. I mean, I think I would definitely bite their hand off, but it's just very unrealistic to expect. I think this season and potentially next. The thing is, where do you think he's best placed to recoup some of that value? I think, we could do with one more season of testing him out at Chelsea before doing a loan.
yeah, no, I think I don't know if we get that value, if we get how much we paid for him, or even if we get more, but yeah, I guess there's no harm in keeping him around like one more season of Gittins where he actually gets regular playing time. His load can be managed across fewer games. Would not be a bad thing, and we can then actually see if their talent ID was actually good, like it made sense. Because if it doesn't work out, then I mean then I'd be willing to let him go. Like you said, Garnacho is more of an established player with that ego. We've seen enough of Garnacho in the Premier League to know that this is probably he's not going to thrive in the system. Like you said, you called it out right at the start. The system wasn't cut out for him. I don't know if Alonso has something different in mind. You never know. But as things stand, the way the season ended and where we are today, in my keep sell loan, Garnacho goes, Gitten stays, and that's just that. Yeah.
So that, I mean, that basically leaves us with the left-footed forwards who are, who aren't Cole Palmer. So Pedro Neto, I mean, it's, I mean, I've kind of done the listening and, I don't want to say reading, but for some it's quite a tough decision, and for others it's not. But it's all seeming a bit negative around him. I do think he's one of these players who I really don't think he was playing for the manager, and that's why we saw him kind of drop off. And I really do think he has a lot to contribute to this team, just in terms of experience, and like on the pitch, kind of playing by example, you know? And again, his raw pace and his dribbling ability always makes him a threat in transitions. And we can't forget how effective we were when we were, allowed to play in transition, especially under Pochettino. So for me, it's not so easy to let him go. Uh, even though, look, I'm not going to say he had a stellar season, but 11 goal contributions in this campaign. Enzo had 10. So, he definitely didn't have the worst season. So again, all of this to say, I think he's a keep for me.
Okay.
And I think other wingers, our younger wingers, can look to him. It's just a question about Alonso making sure he's motivated.
Dude, for me, Pedro Neto, man, I think I have been really, really like it's tricky for me. Look, the fact is he had 52 appearances across all competitions, 10 goals, 10 assists. He had 51 last season, 9 goals, 9 assists. So there's it's par for the course. I wouldn't even call that an improvement, right? I think Pedro Neto has created this divide because he seems to be the most indecisive and sort of aimless player we have. And when I say that, I don't mean like he's not putting in a work rate. I mean like he just runs with his head down. And a lot of times wasting, like that's wasted possession. I mean, yes, under Maresca, especially in that, I want to say between September and December, he was scoring a lot of goals for us. I completely agree. And then you're right, there was a massive drop off under Rosenia where it seemed like he wasn't, whether it was injuries and then just not having impact on the pitch for sure. But I think all of that has led to this real sense of negativity around him because when you're looking at a player on your wings to deliver some sort of output and they're just taking the ball and they have one strategy, which is to put their heads down, run to the byline, not connect for passes, play in a cross, which is, not really making much of an impact or losing the ball, it gets frustrating. 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, you can, be like, okay, fine. But when it's a consistent trait, which is what it seemed to be, it was looking like it was always happening with him, it wasn't making sense. And for me, honestly, Pedro Neto was a sell. I think he's done 2 years, a little bit, whatever, 2 years. And I think it's time to be like, okay, we cash in on him. And I mean, because I also feel like if you're saying that you want to develop an Estevao and a Gittins, and in a season where you're not going to have that much manpower, like that many games, right? And you have a manager who is going to be changing things around, maybe you don't need this player because it's not that he's also like he is experienced. He's one of the older players on the squad, right? Granted, he may still be young, but it's not that he brings that level of leadership either. You know what I mean?
So by the sounds of it, you're giving Estevao almost like a starting berth next season.
Now, coming on to Estevao, yes, I would do that, but this whole fitness thing and this recent news that's come out where it's like he's leaving his hamstring to God, like, bro, I don't get that, man. Like, it's too much of a gamble, and
It sounds like something out of Bollywood.
or something out of Nigeria. Either way, it sounds like he's not realistic, man. Like, I don't know about that. That's just the that's the wild card element there, man. Like Estevao, yes, if I think we were using him wisely until we weren't. The way Maresca was managing him, people were saying play him more, play him more, play him more, but Maresca was bringing him in, saying he wants to, ease him into the squad, and then suddenly he's used a lot in a short time, and his hamstring goes, right? Um, Now, given that, is he someone then that we should be playing week in, week out in a starting berth? Likely not. But the reason I'm still saying Estevao over Pedro Neto is because I'm seeing in that back five system, Estevao either playing in a wing back role or as a 10. And in both places, we have cover. So he's not your out and out first team, like first name on the team sheet sort of player, right? He's there. He can play both positions. He can start clutch games. He can sit out the ones that are not so clutch. And depending on, where he's needed to play, he can play both. That's my rationale for saying I mean, obviously Estevao's a keep. This is not even a doubt. But between Neto and Estevao, that's the way I rationalize it. Yeah.
I think if yeah, he's a keep for me as well. And overall, we probably did miss his impetus, particularly because when he got injured, just more pressure and more obligation felt to Palmer to do something. And he clearly couldn't, right? So yeah, we really missed Estevao. If I'm being hypercritical, I would say he's still not as ruthless as we need him to be in front of goal. And you just hope that that comes. I also think, he's giving shades of Palmer when Palmer was enjoying his football under Pochettino. We talked about this yesterday how about Palmer wasn't necessarily dropping to the six to get the ball under Pochettino. Sometimes he would actually go the opposite direction, closer to goal, right? And play off of Jackson a lot more. And then Estevao Willian has shown that he can actually do that with his runs in behind. Um, I just hope that that's not trained out of him, because I think this is something people have spoken very well about Alonso, is that it's not all about trying to get the ball to your wingers to feet so that you're relying on them to beat their men, right? There is a fair amount of movement required in his systems, which I enjoy, right? I mean, I think Frank Lampard was probably one of the best movers off the ball. His goals tally also meant he's a great finisher, right? But he has to time those runs. He has to get into those positions, and it should never be a part of the game that's discounted. So yeah, if I was being hypercritical, his finishing in front of goal not great, and actually even his long shots. But everything else seems to be going in the right direction. It's funny how he's further along the curve than Gittins, right? But that's kind of why, yeah, we need to create more opportunities for these players in the squad. I totally get that. I don't like to remind everyone about this, but there's also only so much money we can spend. And there's only so much chopping and changing we want to do, right? In terms of trying to keep that stability in the team. So I I mean, are we missing anybody? Because does it feel like we're a bit light, right? I know. Look, we had Jesse Derry. Poor guy looked good,
And then
and I
got
don't want to
clobbered.
knock him. Yeah, and then back. It's like
He got
anybody who
knocked.
looks good at Chelsea, concussion straight away.
Yeah.
And Buenanote, me, I don't know what that was about, but he clearly wasn't trusted by the manager. I think there's quite a few of those players in the squad that weren't actually
I mean,
trusted
I
by
forgot about him.
Maresca.
I forgot about him. I legitimately forgot. One of your was at Chelsea for a bit there. Yeah.
You know why? It's because that first half of the season genuinely feels like it was 10 years ago. You know, I think that's just how much things changed, how much things really dropped off for us. But I think that's it actually in terms of forwards. And I'm not sure if you remember this, but when I was doing my late takes towards the end of the season, I kept saying that it felt like we were light up front, we were light a body, and we looked good against Spurs because Andre Santos was kind of unshackled a bit, right? And and it paid off in terms of like, okay, he gets that second against Spurs and basically does everything but shut the game down, but we're nearly there, right? So yeah, I do feel it feels like we're light here, and it's just about identifying the right profile. And I guess this is where we come to our squads, right, for next season. Okay, may I mean I think now is when we start to include the players we know who are already either rejoining the club or joining the club,
So
right?
there is one player that is also on the list of players that featured for us. But just 2 appearances off the bench before he was shipped out on loan. That's Tariq George. Another player, yeah, who will come back, part of this conversation. That's why I brought him up.
Yeah. So do you want to start with him, or should we just,
No, I mean, I don't think there's
yeah,
much to say. I think he showed that he has a decent finish on him when he was coming on and scoring goals. But I think that, I mean, I don't really have too much of an opinion on him. I think you rated him, if I remember right, from last season. But yeah,
yeah, I think he showed some promise last season, and I kind of liked what he had shown in terms of development during that short preseason we had as well.
yeah,
He looked like he had added some passing to his game. But then, when he's not played and then he's gone on loan, I haven't really tracked him.
yeah.
What I will say is, just going off of what I know now, I do think Gittins has more of a has a higher ceiling than Tariq George. That's my controversial take on two players who are honestly totally meaningless right now. So we've probably given them too much attention on this pod already. But yeah, I mean, if it's a trade off and we only keep one, I would keep Gittins.
Mm.
So and for me, I'm looking at Gittins as cover on the left wing and cover at right wing back. I'm not seeing enough from George to be like, oh, let's keep him. I think if we're talking about keep, loan, sell, we probably try and sell and capture some value here.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm set on him as well. The academy boys. So I'm talking about Jesse Derry, Shimweka. There was Reggie Walsh in the midfield as well. I think these guys just need to. It's great that they got some minutes around the first team, and if they're getting cup competitions, that's fine. But first team for now, I think their pathways will be stalled as well with limited games. The Champions League games will just the lack of that European fixture will just mean that there's more time for players to rest, so there's less chance for these guys to feature. So I'd rather we develop them correctly with loans and with within the academy infrastructure.
Yeah, just what you're saying is just what every other club does. I don't
Yeah,
know why we insist on doing things differently, like that are not in the mold. Sometimes, you know, all of this testing has happened over decades, and we've already found out that this is the best way to develop youngsters, right? They're definitely
no,
not going to get enough minutes in the first team, so you have to loan them out.
yeah, but you have to loan out like 35 of them for it to make sense. That's the way we do it.
That's our way. That's our way. But
Yeah,
now, can we afford 35? And that,
no, there's
that basically
limits.
means we should shut down the academy.
No, there's limits, and that's what I want to get to, right? So now that we've done all all areas of the pitch, right? What is your squad looking like? Um, and we'll probably drop this in the comments as well when we you know
Yeah,
post
so
this. But
I mean, I'm just gonna go systematically. At goalkeeper, there's a big question mark for number one, right? Sanchez number two. I'm just keeping Teddy Sharman low around as a backup keeper. And that already means, we have two guys for a homegrown quota. I don't even know what that means anymore. But at right back, you've got Gusto and James still, because I said keep to Gusto. But if we're going with right wing back, you can also add Gittins into the mix. I'm keeping him in there. So yeah, I think if I'm looking at it in earnest, yeah, probably lacking some depth in that right back, right wing back, especially if it is a wing back role. Don't think James has the legs to do it. In terms of centre backs, it's been a huge cull, right? We're basically saying Colwill, Chalobah, Hato, who can play there, and then you're looking at Cucurella at a left centre back if you really need to. James at a right centre back. Again, this isn't a back three I'm talking. But the out and out centre backs we would have under me are Colwill, Trev, and Hato. And I've also put a question mark here because there is a space for a right footed kind of ball playing centre back who can either fill in for Colwill at central centre back or really take up a starting spot at right centre back if James is not fit. Then at left back, I mean, I've mentioned keeping Hato and Cucurella. And I mean, you may not like this. I'm leaning into this idea of using wingers as wing backs, right? So I'm keeping Neto, right? I think he could do a job at left wing back. I'm not sure about right wing back. I don't like the idea of using wrong footed players as wing backs. As wingers, sure, but as wing backs, no. And then, there's a small matter of another 50 million pound or euro player coming in called Quenda, right? So he's there as well. And he's being touted as maybe a more appropriate left wing back than somebody like Neto or Hato or Cucurella, actually, especially in terms of going forward. So there's really good depth there. What do you sort of make of that back five? Or I basically tried to cover all the defensive positions we may or may not play with. How do you kind of square up against that?
So I think goalkeeping wise, I think I keep Sanchez and Penders, and Jorgensen, definite sell, Sharman loan or sell. Um, and I let both of them fight it out for the number one. If we get, so I think Sharman Low is contingent on if we get another elite keeper. And I don't want to go to the permutations, but yeah, keep Jorgensen, Penders, sell, keep Sanchez, Penders, sell Jorgensen, loan Sharman Low. With the defense, I think the sells are easy, right? But Badiashile, Fofana, Tosin, for me, I would see all of them go. And then keeping James, Colwill, Hato, Chalobah for squad depth. I agree we need one more defender, somebody who can play central centre back or right centre back. I'm with you on that. At left back, I think that Cucurella is looking like he's out, so I'm just going to say sell Cucurella because he doesn't want to be here. Quenda and Hato, cover enough. On the right side, I'm still not sure about Gusto. So for now, I'm going to say keep Gusto. But like we said, 2 seasons of of decline. You could argue that it's not a bad point to sell him if you can line up the right replacement. I am open to the idea of wingers at wing back. And for me, that person is Estevao at right wing back, and the left wing back can be, if we have a good centre back LCB option, then Hato plays at left wing back. I could see that play. I could see it play out like that. So that's where I am with the defense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all hypothetical. But yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I truly believe we should try our best to keep Cucurella and Enzo. I mean, I'm just looking at it also as bare bones. These are the guys you want in the squad, like playing
Yeah.
even when things are bad. But also, we don't need the extra turnover, especially financially.
Yeah.
But like you said, that part's out of our hands. In this hypothetical world I'm living in, I'm keeping Enzo. Just looking at that midfield, I think if we're keeping, oh, sorry, yeah, I'm keeping Caicedo, Santos, Enzo. I think, I can count on James to play a few games there in midfield, a fair few, not as a starting choice there. But I think we would probably still need to add that's number 6 profile. So again, there's a question mark there, but it's definitely third on the list. I would actually just go in order of playing unit, right? If you're starting with your goalkeepers, I think we need a new first choice. Then we go, okay, the center back is the next top priority. And then probably looking at that number 6 role as a big gap in the squad. Um, and then in terms of the attacking midfield, I think we have plenty of depth. So if we do keep Enzo, I think I like him in that attacking midfield role. Obviously, Palmer, Esteval can play there. João Pedro can play there. I believe Quenda can play there as well. I'm liking just having Quenda as a depth piece in multiple positions. He seems to be very versatile. Uh, so yeah, I'm just gonna say that he can kind of play there without any substantiation. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the midfield. And I think I've already highlighted the glaring miss there in terms of what the gap we need to fill.
Mm. Yeah, you did. For me, I think Caicedo, Palmer, Santos are easy keeps. Enzo, I mean, I want him to stay, but if he wants to go, I'm not gonna say no, right? That's the caveat. Like I made it clear, if they don't want to be there, they can go. Um, there is also this news that Fiorentina Perez has said if he's gonna sign a player, if he gets reelected, it's gonna be not a Premier League player, and they're now saying it's not. They won't come in for Enzo, so I don't know about that. For me, the sell is Lavia for sure. I think we got to cash in on him, and Esugo gets a loan. I remember that. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on the 6, but we have Barco as well, and Barco is another player who could play left back and also DMC. So I don't know if he profiles as a 6. That you could probably tell me. And when I say we have him, like I said, it's not official yet, um, but it seems like it's mostly done. So if Barco does come in, and does he fit the mold for a 6? Do you know anything about him from a midfield
I know
perspective?
that he doesn't fit the profile of the 6 I'm talking about, right?
Right.
Um, so so I see him more as it's a kind of similar player to what we already have. They're not very tall, but good technical player. Probably has a bit more on him in terms of athleticism than Enzo, but again, he's more about connecting the play. I would actually say he's probably closer again to profile than Enzo, right? Than anyone else. So it almost feels like a direct replacement when you refer to it like that. Like when you put it as Enzo doesn't want to be here, Barco is pretty much all but done, right? It kind of feels like, okay, well, the two are kind of married together and one can go out
Maybe.
if one comes in.
Yeah. Maybe. Maybe.
But yeah, I don't see him filling that kind of gap that would allow Caicedo to be the guy, you know? And
Yeah.
I do think, like you say, if Enzo's mentally not going to do that, if he's not going to be the guy, it's got to be Caicedo in the midfield, man. I think he's got almost everything. I think with Santos, there is a 6 in there, right? But we would also be sacrificing parts of his game. But again, like I'm okay to do that, right, with Santos because it's for the greater good. Look, not everybody's gonna be in the profile or like in the position and in the role with the profile that suits them perfectly, right? A lot of players are gonna have to make sacrifices to get the best out of your Caicedos on the team.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. No, for sure. I guess so. So midfield, then we're kind of then we've wrapped up, and then going to the forwards for me. I think keep João Pedro, Estevao, Gittins. Mass clearance there. Pedro Neto, Garnacho, Delap, Tariq George, all gotta go. And Guiu gets the loan. That's what I'm looking at.
I mean, I've broken it down into wingers and strikers. So for me, I'm seeing Palmer as a bit of a winger as well. Estevao, same. Uh, I've kept Neto in my squad, and of course Quenda and Gittins. So I think in terms of attacking midfield and winger options, I've actually kept it quite fresh in terms of there should be enough players for rotations, but also, and the rotations, or what I mean is like, of course, we want players to build up form, right? But when legs need to be rested, I think there's enough depth there that we can actually rely on, right? Even in semi-important games. So if somebody picks up an injury, I think I've kept enough depth in that team. So we of course we want players to build the form, the connections between each other. But if the game's not going to plan, I think there's also again there's depth on the bench to go to and be like, hey, come and change it for us. So in terms of the strikers, I've kept three. And I think it's very, very important we have almost like three players in terms of each position that we're going to play, right? Now, one player can serve in many roles, right? Like I'm showing with Gittins, seeing him as a right wing back, but also as a left winger or even a right winger, right? Quenda, I've got all over the pitch. In terms of the strikers, though, I'm not like messing about. I think JP number one, and if he's having to drop to a 10, then Jackson has to stick around, and Guiu as my third choice striker. I think if I'm looking at that, there's definitely enough depth, but there's also enough variety, right? I think JP probably looks to link more than other things. Jackson, I think, will be fresh, right? Hopefully, he's added some new strings to his bow. I think that's the phrase, right? Having played under Harry Kane this season, and then Guiu again, like I feel like he has this unknown quantity to him. So there's some variety there.
Okay. I think if you talk about the incomings, I think Jackson and Emega just make up the three bodies that, would play at striker, and Guiu gets that alone for development. I think it's important that they give him a loan where he's playing regularly. And that would be probably best for his developments. For me, it's JP, Jackson, Emega. You gets the loan. Then that gotta go. But yeah. So that wraps up our our whole thing. And yeah, like, bear in mind, of course, we've identified gaps, but how these transfers plan out, who comes in, who's your ideal player. I haven't thought about ideals. I don't know if you have ideal players at each position that you have identified as a gap, but I don't. So if you do, great, you could share them. If you want to, maybe do that a little bit later when we're talking about Alonso, we could do that as well.
Wait, are you talking to me or the audience?
I was talking to you, man. This is me and
Okay.
you talking, bro. I mean,
I
audience,
want to
sure.
say,
I'd
right,
love to hear. Sorry, go ahead.
with the squad that I'm not going to say put together, but the squad that I've described, it's 22 players, right? So it's that big,
Yeah.
which is like, but at the same time, I feel like there's depth. Now, that's 22 players, including us signing like a first choice keeper, a starting quality center back, and then potentially a number six, right? It's not that hard to do this. I don't understand how they were ending up with squads of 30 plus players.
Oh, there was a let's buy the newest thing on the market sort of situation happening, right? Just competitive buying. Like, I want it because somebody else wants
It
it.
must be nice it must be nice to be so rich that you're just buying as a sport. But I'm basically looking just to summarize. I'm keeping 20 of the players that actually played for us this season, um, loaning out 8 and selling 11. So that's a lot of 11 sales is a lot of work to do, of course. And then, of course, finding the appropriate loans, like you've mentioned many times, it's not just about sending them to X, Y, and Z. They need actual game time, right? And then, yeah, after you get all of that done, we also need to make these additions.
Yeah,
As much as we say stability is required, yeah, cutting out the dead wood is, that creates a bit of instability in itself, right? So,
for sure.
but it needs to be done.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I think we said it on one of the earlier ones, right? Like you wouldn't imagine, but we actually do need a rebuild, right? Like it's 11 players out is essentially a rebuild. Like I also have about 10, 11 players, so it's a complete rebuild, and this is just our version of it. There's gonna be differences for sure. So I mean, I look forward to seeing what they pull out now, but yeah, it's gonna be fun as it always is. I feel like we end every pod on a similar note, right? I think that brings us to a close of this one. We've covered, again, just to recap, we've done the goalkeepers and defense, we've done the midfield, we've done the forwards now, and before all of these three, we had our end of season review. So if you haven't heard them yet, definitely listen. And if you have and you're here, then let us know what you think. How do you feel the squad needs to be dealt with? Sharon, any last words?
Yeah, I mean, give us your keep loan, sell, and all that good nonsense. I'm sure between the two of us, we've said something controversial to somebody, like somebody's thought process. But yeah, honestly, man, like I'm starting to realize that, the majority of Chelsea fans seem to have the right mindset. Like, oh, I don't want to say right or wrong, actually. We're all kind of like thinking in that direction, right? In a similar direction. Because I think we've watched more football than our owners have. Which again, look, I think towards the end of this pod, I've just lost. I've just reminded myself that I was living in a fantasy world, and now the fantasy is coming to a close, and we now have to start living in their reality again. But yeah,
You know what would be super interesting? Sorry, you know the phone company Nothing. They have a community supervisor or community, basically a representative from their loyal users and like the loyal fan base who is elected onto the board, a community board observer. How cool would it be if Chelsea fans could elect someone to sit in and give their opinions there? That would be fun.
or
So
just to see what they actually talk about. Like, I just want to see, like, do you guys actually know what you're talking about? Oh man, there's so many, like you said, so many variables, so many questions. We can only hope that they give the reins to Alonso. Again, like I don't even know Alonso's pedigree in terms of managing more than just the team he has. I'm not saying he's bad at that. I'm saying like that's all I know. I don't know how he is in terms of recruitment, in terms of managing the fitness of his players and all that stuff.
yeah,
But
I don't
in the
either, and
back
I
of
don't
your
know.
mind, you're like, surely he's better than what we've done the last 4 years.
Yeah,
Oh man, it's a
surely. I
funny
mean,
situation because you have to laugh or else you'll cry. Right?
yeah, and I don't know any Leverkusen fans who could like tell me this. So I think, man, this has been a long one, and it's been a fun one. And let's just we'll catch up on the next one and maybe deep dive into Alonso next, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as long as you don't say keep the blue flag flying high, I think my blue flag is going to rest for the summer, as are most of our players. And for me, I'm super pumped for the World Cup. No matter what FIFA do to try and, you know, price everyone out of it, right? I still end up getting pumped. So yeah, I'm looking forward to just it's funny. I watched like the PSG Bayern game in the Champions League, and I watched like 90 minutes of the final. I couldn't be bothered with extra time penalties. in the Champions League. And I was like, I've forgotten what it's like to watch good football, but you know,
No, fair. But on the subject of the World Cup, I think this is where you've gone the optimistic route, and I'm like very pessimistic. I'm kind of indifferent, if I'm being honest. But at the same time, like, I mean, of course, I'm not gonna stay up to watch games or whatever. But who are you supporting?
supporting football, the great sport that it is.
Great, good answer. Good
Honestly,
answer.
man, like I'm just hoping to catch a few like really entertaining games and learn about players and systems that we don't get to see watching Chelsea every week. But yeah, man, it's funny how like at the end of a very long and arduous season, the optimist is kind of tired of this. And that's when the pessimist has reserved all of his energy. And now I can go and spend it on the World Cup. Isn't that great?
All right. Well, that's great. Enjoy the World Cup. And to everyone who's pumped about it, enjoy it as well. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Peace.
Peace.